If something is wrong, fix it now. But train yourself not to worry. Worry fixes nothing. Ernest Hemingway. When you're going through a negative loop in life, and no matter what you do, it just feels like you're grasping at straws and it's like one thing collapsing after another, what's typically happening is your reality is revitalizing itself. The old is burning away, so from its ashes, something new can be born. And the more you resist that and fight that, the more you keep that negative situation going longer and longer. It's kind of like in Harry Potter, where they, towards the end of the first Harry Potter series, they're in that tree, and the more Harry resists, the stronger the tree gets and wraps around Harry and his friends. And then Hermione says, you just have to relax and you'll pass through under it to the other side. It's literally like that scene. The more you relax, you'll go through to the other side. Now, one thing to understand here is that's obviously easier said than done. It's very, very difficult to go through a tumultuous period in your life, especially if you're noticing a business failing or a loved one going through a struggle or, God forbid, infidelity in your relationship, like whatever may happen. You're just going through a negative spiral right now with all of these thoughts. The key to relaxation is to get to a place of acceptance. The conscious mechanism we're utilizing here is the process of accepting everything as is, because everything that is happening is a part of what's known as your shadow. It's your shadow expressing itself, but what you're doing is you're trying to push it down by trying to be positive. Try to be positive. Please focus on positivity. You can't. You have to become the bad person to go through that and confront all of your inner demons to pass through to the other side, where out of the ashes something great is born. And unfortunately for most of us, what we do is there are parts of us that we don't like. And typically, if you've grown up in a very strict religious household, like a Christian household, certain things you were taught to be very, very taboo. And everything that you considered to be taboo and you rejected, that has been suppressed into your shadow. And unfortunately, that's why you see a lot of these cases of priests becoming pedos and amongst other things, because it's their shadow that they've suppressed and it's starting to act out in ways that they don't like it. Especially in the case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's exactly what happened. A part of him started to express itself because it's been suppressed for so long, because he's been trying to keep up with the Joneses and show this face as this character. But within each and every single one of us, there is a shadow that is waiting to see the light. And the only way to overcome that is to become whole. And when Carl Jung was asked this, he said, I would rather be whole than be good. And being whole means being like light. Light is the presence of every single color. Love is the presence of every single emotion. You notice how when you're in love, you feel this pain too. You feel the pain of heartbreak. You feel the pain of the other person when they're going through that pain. You go through joy. You go through heartbreak. You go through anger. You go through sadness. All of the compilation of those feelings is like light. It is love. When that rises within us, when we accept each and every single part of us, even the negative thoughts, the negative feelings as parts of us, we give ourselves permission to be whole, to be complete. And that's when you notice that there is a certain level of ease within your life. And you notice that there's a higher intelligence operating where things all of a sudden fall into place. Every single intention you make all of a sudden starts to manifest by itself. That can only happen when there is a low level of conflict within your psyche. When you've accepted that animalistic part of you that you've hated, that you've been so afraid of, that you've judged your whole life, you allow that part to come up sometimes. You allow yourself to be in the tension of the conflict sometimes. And sometimes you do suppress it when you're going through tough times where you can't deal with it all at once. These are all mechanisms of dealing with that feeling of becoming whole and complete. And I think that should be the goal of every single human being that's going through this earthly material existence. I had to confront the shadow in my personal life when I realized how attached I was getting to the business, and I had neglected every other thing in my life, especially my relationship. My wife and I were having a tumultuous time in the relationship, and I started to notice it was because of how obsessive I've been about enforcing my rules and enforcing my order, because I hated this other part of me that's lazy, that's not disciplined, and I've trained myself my whole life to not be that way, because I believed that that was the key to success. Because of all the Andrew videos you watch around there, it teaches you the importance of massive action and the importance of working hard. And so whenever I found myself being lazy, or whenever I saw my wife not working hard, etc., I would like be on her case. And so it led to a lot of conflicts within our relationship. But even more than that, I started to notice when my business was going through a tough time. We had a rough Q2 of this year where we had to let go of a couple of high performing employees because company was changing, our culture was changing, and it just didn't work out. And our sales were down, and I just woke up every single morning at 3-4 a.m. with a pit of anxiety in my stomach, and I was afraid for my life. It felt like I was trying to survive because I had worked on this business for the last 5-6 years and kind of felt like I was losing a part of myself. But I had to go through the other side of that anxiety and confront the fear of losing this business and it not working out at all. But then realizing my identity is separate from the business. It's not me. And so part of that time going through that was confronting my shadow, being lazy and just not doing anything at work, taking time off work, even though it felt like the most wrong thing to do because every single fiber of my existence wanted to get back to work and try to fix the fire and put all the fires out. But I realized that I needed to let the fires burn and stop fighting. And just like Harry Potter and friends, I needed to relax and just completely take off so that I could be whole and have that part of me find expression. In a way, I had to just stop giving a fuck. Because the desire for a positive experience itself is a negative experience. If you're someone who is completely new to this, the highest likely path you've been exposed to is the path of positive thinking. Be positive, try to be positive, shut out the negativity. That in itself is one of the gravest sins you can commit. The literal translation of the word sin is to miss the mark. You are missing the mark if you are suppressing the negative side of you. Instead, let's begin to confront that negative side of us. But let's go even deeper. Instead of looking at the conscious mind and the thoughts that it presents, let's trace back these thoughts to the core feeling that gives birth to these thoughts. Because one feeling produces 1,000 thoughts, and all of those thoughts are there to justify the presence of that feeling. When you feel anxious, you try to justify why you're feeling anxious. Oh, it's because my business isn't doing well. It's because the economy is not doing well. It's because I don't have job security. It's because my family, my wife, my kid, etc. You're trying to justify the presence of that feeling. But let me ask you a question. For those of you who have road rage and you act out during traffic, if you weren't an angry person, if you were just a happy, peaceful person, why would a traffic jam cause you to have an outburst? It's because you're holding on to anger within you in the first place. So the best way to deal with these negative thoughts is to address the underlying feeling and work on its surrender. And there's a great method in a book called Letting Go by Dr. David R. Hawkins. In it, he describes the surrender method. And I've been performing this surrender method for the last, 8 years that I've been on this personal development journey. And what I've noticed is the more you perform a release, a bodily release and a bodily surrender of whatever it is that you're going through, and you give yourself permission to feel it fully, the emptier and lighter you become. And what David R. Hawkins talks about, different feelings have different frequencies. And as you get higher and higher in feelings like love, joy, peace, those have the highest frequencies and they feel lighter. The lower and lower you get in the consciousness scale, the heavier the feeling. Like grief, anger, pride, shame, these have the heaviest feeling, the most repression amongst all of them. To work on that, when you feel feelings you don't like, instead of running away from them, confront them head on. So David R. Hawkins says there's 4 main methods that we use to deal with our feelings. The lowest, the unconscious way to deal with them is repression. It's when it's completely out of our consciousness and we've shoved it somewhere within our bodies. It's fully embodied and it's not aware consciously anymore. A level higher than that is suppression. It's when we consciously suppress an event that we can't deal with, we don't know how to deal with yet. A level higher than that is expression, where you get angry, you act out immediately. While that's good, it's better than suppression and repression, it still isn't effective because the energy of that emotion gets propagated out into the world. Let's say if it's anger, you propagate it out into the world, into other people, but the remaining amount gets suppressed and then repressed. But the highest form of dealing with all feelings is full surrender. And to surrender, to let go, simply means to let be. Whatever it is you're feeling right now, allow yourself to feel it fully. Don't judge it. Don't run away from it. Don't try to change it. And I know it's a conundrum to say, I'm trying to let go without trying to change it, because that is the goal. But true surrender is to say, it's okay. I allow myself to feel this feeling for as long as it needs to be there. If you're going through the passing of a loved one, or you've tried to start up a business for a really long time, or you have a relationship that just ended miserably, and you really thought this relationship was going to be the one after so many failed relationships, and you wonder why this pattern keeps happening to you, just ease into that feeling, that tension of that feeling. Don't run away from the tension, because suppression of an emotion or a feeling is running away from it. Expression of a feeling is also running away from it. If I have a craving within me, an addiction, and I act on that addiction, it's a running away from the feeling. Do you notice the difference? It's like, if I have a craving for sweet and sugary foods, which is something that I've in the past dealt with, and I notice that every time I act on that impulse, I'm actually running away from the tension of that feeling. Instead, stay with the tension of that feeling, and you're going to notice that the tension of that feeling over time, it just gets transmuted. In this way, you become a true creator of your reality rather than a slave to your bodily impulses. Because most of us, we're being run by these unconscious programs that have been repressed our whole lives, like childhood memories. I dealt with bullying when I was a kid, and heartbreak and rejection by women, and that ran my life for a very, very long time. And to a certain extent, it still does. It makes me want to become successful so that I can prove the bullies wrong. But if I go deeper into that feeling and explore it, I can notice that these feelings get transmuted into something greater. And the negative fuel that was running me, that made me want to achieve these things, typically what happens with those is once I achieve the thing, the glamour of it is gone. I've achieved it. The bullies still don't think I'm the greatest ever. What more do I need? It's like I'm trying to fill an empty void, which never gets filled. And that's the outcome of running on negative fuel. Where opposed to that, when your fuel gets transmuted into something more positive, you're thinking about, how can I do the greatest good for mankind? And that's coming from a different place. It's not coming from a place of survival where the ego is trying to survive, but it's coming more from a place of thriving, where the higher self, that's an expression of the God within you. I made a comprehensive video on the surrender method that shows you step by step how to perform it. I think it's one of my best videos that I put out there. It must have like a couple 100,000 views on it. All you need to do is click on one of the buttons here. It'll show you an end screen, and it'll take you directly to the video. And just make sure you follow that step by step for a certain period of time, like at least 30, 60, 90 days. And what you're going to find is it's going to become a way of you dealing with feelings. Anytime you go through anything turbulent in your life, you're going to come to that method because it's so effective. And you'll notice, again, there's a certain sense of ease that comes in your life without you needing to struggle and attracting more instances, more events that make you struggle even more and more. The reason we keep attracting more and more events outside that make us struggle inside is because we feel the craving for drama and struggle internally. That's unconsciously what we're holding on to. That's what we believe we're deserving and worthy of. The truth is, you're deserving and worthy of the greatest good that life can offer, and that's why you're here. And the journey of life is doing just that. But unfortunately, no one really teaches you how to handle your feelings. They don't teach you this shit in school, man. So if you'd like to get access to that, just click on one of these videos and it'll take you right there.